callers and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Ask the Experts show with local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Enjoy being educated in such topics as personal injury law, community association law, family law, bankruptcy law, along with health show topics like pain management, men's health, and dental implants. Now, sit back and enjoy today's Ask the Experts with host Steve-O.
Hey, just another day in paradise. At least it's not raining. Looks like we have lost our guest tonight. I hope he will dial to get back in. There he is. He's back with us. Hey, this is the Ask the Expert show. I'm host Steve-O. We air every Monday and Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. And our show is live. One of the few live shows left, which means you can call in at 888-565-1470. And what an appropriate show tonight, employment law. I mean, I've heard some of the most horror stories, people trying to get unemployment. They can't even get anybody on the phone, yet alone get to the website. So that is not going well in Florida. But tonight's guest, he is an attorney with the Richard Seller Law Firm. His name is attorney, got to put that attorney, Andres Grabeth, right?
Proboth, close enough.
Oh my! See, I understand that because mine's 12 letters, so that's why I go by Steve-O. We are so, I guess, privileged to have you on tonight because there's a lot of people suffering out there. First of all, Andres, tell us about your firm.
Hey, Steve. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Look, our firm is a strictly an employees' rights law firm. We only represent employees in matters that deal with unpaid wages and unlawful terminations, which could be a host of several things, which I'm sure we'll get into a little further.
Like discrimination.
Discrimination, whether it be racial discrimination, gender, pregnancy,
sexual,
protections, sexual protections against whistleblowers, all sorts of things.
And a lot of people don't even know what employment law is, but this is all you do. It's not like you do criminal law and personal, you strictly do employment law.
That's correct. That's all we do every day. And look, we fight the good fight. We're here on the front lines for trying to enforce employees' civil rights.
Have you noticed with the virus and so many people being out of work, what kind of phone calls have you been getting at the office?
Well, we've been getting our usual phone calls that we get daily, but our phones haven't stopped ringing since late February, since things started really picking up. We're still open. We haven't closed down. We're going strong. Look, we provide a service to the community. Obviously, we are a business and a law firm that we get paid for our services, but we're still running. We're getting a lot of calls related, people asking questions. Is what's happening to me illegal? And there are fine lines to whether that is illegal or not.
So, is there a such thing as illegal termination?
Oh yes. So we live in Florida, and as most folks know, Florida is an at-will state, which means that you can get fired for any reason as long as it's not an illegal reason. And that's where we come in, really, because employers do a lot of unethical, unfair things, but might not necessarily be illegal. So when we come in is when we try to enforce some of the statutes that do protect employees in both the federal statutes and the state statutes.
Well, with the virus, is there a different type of illegal termination? Are they protected because of the virus? Because a lot of the businesses have had to terminate people.
Yeah, so Congress did act quickly and enacted the Family First Act, which was essentially an extension of the Family Medical Leave Act, which did provide certain protections to employees. And yes, but the truth is that some of the situations that are going on right now, furloughs, department-wide furloughs, might not necessarily be illegal. Now, we are getting calls of folks that had previously been discriminated against, had incidents at work that are now also being put into this category of the furloughs. And we come in and make the argument that it's just a cover-up for retaliation or for discrimination.
My daughter told me she was furloughed. I did not want to look like an idiot. What is a furlough nowadays with the virus?
Well, essentially, it's putting a halt to the business, and not necessarily it's a termination, but a temporary one, which could lead to a permanent termination of a set amount of employees. Now, the hope is that businesses turn it around and can hire these employees back based on their own business needs, but essentially they're not required to do so, and sometimes the business requires that departments do get completely upheaved.
So, Andres, if someone is terminated, they go out and look for another job. If somebody is furloughed, should they go look for another job?
Well, that's a great question. The job market is what it is right now. It's a tough situation to be put at as an employee. Because the hope is that, the business that you have invested a lot of time and effort into, and, tried to build a career out of, hopefully they turn it around and are able to bring you back. But the truth is that might not be the case. So, we encourage folks to go out and look for jobs, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you do have to look after your own interests here.
Gotcha. Give me some examples of illegal termination.
So there are various examples. We do have certain the state statutes, for example, the Florida Civil Rights Act, which mirrors our federal laws, do protect against discrimination and retaliation for basically being a member of a protected class. Now, what is a protected class? You're talking about racial discrimination, gender discrimination. We see a lot of pregnancy discrimination, and a lot with the Me Too movement. We're seeing an increase in sexual harassment cases. Those are situations that are illegal. And, addition to that, Florida does have whistleblower protections for individuals that object to an illegal activity that's going on in their business, and because of their objection, they get retaliated against and are terminated.
There was a movie that I've watched. I cannot believe I don't know the name of it. It was with Michael Douglas, and he was being let go because of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
You remember this movie?
Can't think of the name.
Can't think, but anyway, they brought one of his assistants in, and like a baseball player or a football player, how you pat the guy on the tush. They brought that into it, and to me, it looked so innocent. Oh, great, Ken. It's called disclosure.
Okay, yeah.
But I mean, is it really like that? You just kind of take a manila folder and kind of pat your female assistant on the tush. Can they go after you for that?
Look, like I said, the environment's changed. The Me Too movement has changed a lot of things, with how you treat women. Not only that, but women are more comfortable coming out and wanting, being able to enforce their rights. It's those days where you can casually, make those actions against women are over. And, women should be able to work in an environment where they don't feel uncomfortable. And while, to you and I, that might seem as, kind of locker room banter as males, but to a female, that, that uncomfortableness, that really affects their employment. And, it's at this point, it's illegal.
What about sexual orientated jokes? Is it the same thing?
That too, and we are seeing an increase in that. I know that the Supreme Court is going to make a ruling soon, hopefully, on certain issues related to sexual orientation. So we do have our eye on that. But like I said, these days of where people were afraid to speak out or say that this makes me feel uncomfortable, whether you thought that it would or not. The real issue is that it does, and these people shouldn't have to work in an environment that makes them feel this way.
How does discrimination to one person and another person, it doesn't seem like discrimination. Is that hard to litigate?
Well, look, I mean, there's always two sides to every story, right? So when we come in, we argue and we fight for our clients' rights, and essentially, it's for the most part, the defense is they're going to say that they didn't feel that there was any wrongdoing, right? But in reality, you take your employee and you take your plaintiff as it comes, and if it got to a position where it made them feel uncomfortable and they made that known to their employer and their employer did nothing about it, then they might have a valid claim.
Andres is an attorney with the Richard Seller Law Group here in South Florida. They strictly do employment law. Give everybody your phone number and your website before we go to our first break.
Yeah, Steve-O, we're at 866-344-WAGE. That's our phone number. It's a toll-free number. Our website is www.floridaovertimelawyer.com. And I will invite folks to go to our YouTube page. We have a lot of information. We're constantly posting blogs, and we're part of what we do is we want to keep people informed of what their rights are, and and hopefully there's something there we can help with.
Great. We're going to go to break. We come back. I want to get to some topics like whistleblower and how you are compensated. So we'll be right back with Andres from the Richard Seller Law Firm. We'll be right back.
For the past 20 years, attorney Richard Seller, the managing partner and founder of Seller Legal, has focused his practice exclusively on labor and employment law. During his career, Richard has covered either by settlement or verdict over $100 million in damages for workers around the United States in cases involving overtime minimum wages, unpaid commissions, breach of contract, race discrimination, sex and pregnancy discrimination, and sexual harassment, and all other employment discrimination types of cases involving employees against employers. If you feel like your employer has violated your rights, contact Richard Seller Legal at 954-903-7475 for a free evaluation of your claims, or visit www.floridaovertimelawyer.com to fill out an evaluation form and receive a free copy of Richard's book, The Employee's Survival Guide to Wrongful Termination in Florida, or watch Richard Seller's legal YouTube channel for video guides on how to navigate a claim for wrongful termination. As always, their review of your situation and initial consultation is free of charge, and if they take your case, they do so on a contingency basis, which means they don't charge you any out-of-pocket money, whether they win or lose.
And we are back. This is the Expert Show. We're on every Monday and Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. So we are live right now. And there's probably actually people driving home from work now. We're in South Florida, so we were like one of the last ones to open. How are these companies, Andres, how are they protecting themselves should someone get sick in their establishment, meaning the virus?
Well, that's a great question, and a lot of companies are being a lot more serious about what type of precautions they do take because there is liability there. If you know that you have an employee that could potentially be infected with a coronavirus, you have a duty to create policies and create procedures as an employer to protect your other employees, from exposure. So, I think businesses are being cognizant of the fact that, there are some serious implications with the coronavirus that could give rise to, certain exposures. For example, OSHA workplace safety violations that could come in, which could lead to a potential whistleblower violation, whistleblower claim, I'm sorry. And, we're hoping that employers are cognizant of this, but we are seeing cases every day where employers just aren't given the right, PPE, the personal protective equipment, and they're not making the right steps to protecting their employees' safety.
Why is it taking so long for people here in Florida to get their unemployment?
That's another good question. It's it's a system. We have a lot of cases where, Florida is a big state. As you can imagine, the unemployment agencies are filled up. Initially when this pandemic started to really increase, we were advising folks that weren't able to get into the unemployment website, log in at 3 in the morning, log in at 3:30, set an alarm,
Wow.
wake up early, wake up and do it at kind of a middle of the night, and that will open up and perhaps give you some better luck as far as getting in and submitting your application.
Well, I know you represent the employee side, but I guess you're also saying that if you're an employer, you should get some kind of legal document and have everybody sign it, or else you could have some liabilities if someone gets sick at work.
Yeah, and then look, it goes past just signing a legal document because as we can sign a lot of things, but what we look at is the facts of what's the actual situation, because you can sign a document where an employee agrees to come into work given the certain situation, but if the employer is still not acting accordingly and providing the right PPE and doing the right safety measures, then they may run into trouble as far as these regulations regulating workplace safety.
So when you sit down with a potential client that has the goods on their employer, but they're afraid to be a whistleblower because if it's ever found out it was them, they're afraid they could lose their job or that things could be made tough on them. What do you tell a potential client?
It is a personal question because given the current environment, people are hesitant to want to cause issues at work. But depending on what your employer is, we have to understand that an employer creating it, being involved in illegal activities could have possible ramifications for other consumers. We do have cases in the construction industry where employees are complaining and objecting to illegalities involving construction, and a construction defect could have some huge ramifications. We saw what happened at FIU with the bridge.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Shoddy construction.
Right, and I didn't, don't know too much about that specific instance, but part of the protection is if an employee sees that there's wrongdoing, there's illegal activity or a violation of rule, regulation, or law, they should come forward and tell their employer. And I give the advice to everyone: have it in writing. Document everything. That's very important.
Can you protect them?
So we can. The laws do protect against retaliation. Now, we can't protect them against, what the employer might want to do as far as terminating them, but at least we have a legal recourse to give, the employee a remedy if that's the route that the employer wants to take.
So I've gotten 3 texts now for people who are listening, and they all ask the same question. How do you charge?
Yeah, well, we're a contingency attorney. We're a contingency law firm. So essentially, we don't get paid until the client gets paid, which is very interesting because there are attorneys out there that will charge consultation fees. Our staff and our attorneys, we review all the intakes coming in, and we provide free consultations. And look, we're very candid about the advice that we give, but part of why we've become very successful is the fact that we don't get paid until the client gets paid, and we're in the same game as they are.
Do your rates, they work like a personal injury attorney, that if it's settled out of court, there's a certain percentage, but if you have to litigate it, it's a higher percentage?
So that's specifically regulated for personal injuries. In our situation, we do have just a set percentage of the total settlement amount that we would take for our time and fees and costs incurred. But it's not based on whether it's in litigation or in a pre-suit stage.
Okay. Very good. What makes your firm different from other firms out there? You just said one, because you do everything on a contingency basis.
We do everything on a contingency basis, which, we invest the initial time and cost to get, to work your file and to work your claim and to, get after a resolution for you. Now, I will say that a lot of attorneys out there, and a lot of law firms out there aren't necessarily litigation attorneys. They're not trial attorneys. What we do is we go to trial. If we can't get to a resolution, we're not afraid to go, all the way and try a case. Now, I do encourage folks to ask questions when looking for an employment attorney. Have you, tried a case before? Have you tried a case for this specific claim? That's very important. So, we are litigation attorneys, so that does differentiate us as far as, the first settlement offer that comes in. We're not going to, take a bite out of the apple.
And you handle all of Florida, is that right?
That's correct. And not only Florida, I mean, sometime our practice takes us elsewhere. It takes us nationwide. When you start getting into some of the collective or class actions, you start dealing with employers who are really nationwide.
I think, first of all, if people don't get excited about your firm, let's do this, because I can guarantee you there's someone out there who never thought about hiring an employment attorney. Let's go down one more time the different things, starting off with discrimination or overtime, all the different areas that you cover.
Yeah, so we do specifically do a lot of overtime cases, in the sense that, for the most part, an employee who works more than 40 hours on a given week is owed time and a half. Now, there are certain limitations. Certain employees might be exempt, and that's all something that we look into, whether you would be owed time and a half. And to give you an example, if you're $10 an hour employee and you work over 40 hours, for those first 40 hours, you're getting paid at the $10 an hour rate. For anything over than that, the time and a half, and we are attorneys, we're not mathematicians, but the quick math is you would get paid $15 an hour for any time over $40. So aside from unpaid wages, we go into that goes into the discrimination and retaliation laws, both the federal, which could be Title VII, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Pregnancy Disability Act, or the equivalent state laws, which are the Florida Civil Rights Act. And that goes into race discrimination, gender discrimination, sexual orientation, disability is a big one. If you're suffering from a disability that impacts a major life function, the employer is required to provide reasonable accommodations that won't cause an undue burden. So aside from that, There's also laws, as far as we mentioned a little bit before, with the whistleblower protection, and other laws such as workers' comp retaliation. If you get hurt on the job and you tell your manager, you object about you're not getting your proper workers' comp rights being adhered to, and they terminate you. Now that's where we come in.
Gotcha. I got to tell you, at today's show, Richard should be so proud of you. You've done such a great job. Let's give everybody your phone number and your website address again.
It's 866-344-WAGE. That's a toll-free number. The website, it's www.floridaovertimelawyer.com. And as I mentioned before, we do have a YouTube channel. I encourage everyone to stay informed, really, because a lot of folks don't know what their rights are, and it's important to enforce those rights.
If you see that you need an employment attorney, again, it's Richard Seller. That's Celler, Employment Law. And Anders, you did a great job, and we'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. All right, Steve, my pleasure.
And we'll be right back.
For the past 20 years, attorney Richard Seller, the managing partner and founder of Seller Legal, has focused his practice exclusively on labor and employment law. During his career, Richard has covered either by settlement or verdict over $100 million in damages for workers around the United States in cases involving overtime minimum wages, unpaid commissions, breach of contract, race discrimination, sex and pregnancy discrimination, and sexual harassment, and all other employment discrimination types of cases involving employees against employers. If you feel like your employer has violated your rights, contact Richard Seller Legal at 954-903-7475 for a free evaluation of your claims, or visit www.floridaovertimelawyer.com to fill out an evaluation form and receive a free copy of Richard's book, The Employee's Survival Guide to Wrongful Termination in Florida, or watch Richard Seller's legal YouTube channel for video guides on how to navigate a claim for wrongful termination. As always, their review of your situation and initial consultation is free of charge, and if they take your case, they do so on a contingency basis, which means they don't charge you any out-of-pocket money, whether they win or lose. At the